Last one of the evening.
So fucking excited
The longest
to be
day
done
ever
in podcast history.
Las Vegas, Nevada, coming to you live everywhere you can hear podcasts. Hey, Brittany, do you know what show this is?
I'm not quite sure. Why don't you remind me?
Wow. Podcast. Hey, welcome to another episode of This Our Normal Podcast. I am your host, Saul Jones. I'm sitting here, as always, with our wonderful audio engineer, Joel Cowan.
Thanks, Saul.
I've got my co-host, Brian Hoodie.
That is me.
Do not call him Sweatshirt.
Don't do it.
And then our guest now, she's a beautiful young woman, went to treatment with me at Solutions Recovery. We lived together for about 3,000 days. And she's doing great. She's sober. It is Brittany Morris.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on?
Not much.
You excited?
Yes, very.
Really quick, before we get started, I want to remind everybody to go to our website at thisournormalpodcast.com. You can find everything you need to know about us on there. Links to everywhere that you can hear music, you can hear us. And main thing is, want to thank everybody who's gone to iTunes, hit subscribe, and mainly that left us comments and 5-star ratings on there. We read all those comments. They really do mean the world to us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Absolutely, thank you. As always, This Is Our Normal Podcast is brought to you by Serenity Sober Living down in South Orange County, California. We have men's and women's sober living, and if you're a man,
A one man,
and you come live there now, I'll be your house manager. You get to live with me. But we highly recommend this place.
Highly.
Hit the contact link on the website, and we'll get you hooked up. Oh, I stopped that perfect, bro.
Do you even stop now?
I timed that one so good. So Brittany, I like to start out a little lighthearted, a little bit silly. Give me a silly story from either treatment. Give me a silly story from being in treatment.
A silly story?
Or
I have
funny.
a bunch of crazy stories that went on in treatment. So
Let's hear one. Throw one at me.
let's see. Throw something at me.
Okay, how about this? Well, let's start here. How long have you been sober this time?
Well, my sobriety date is September 23rd of 2018.
Damn.
So I just took 9 months.
Nice.
Awful lot of months.
Yeah.
In a row.
In a row. Weekends included.
So, I have a question. What made you get... Well, because you're not even 21 yet, right?
Correct. I'll be 21 in a week.
Can't drink and already not even 21.
Right.
So, okay. Tell me what life was like leading up to the days going into treatment just before going in, and then what made you decide to go and get help?
So there was a lot that happened in those last couple of months before I entered treatment.
Go on.
One being my DUI, where I crashed somebody else's car.
DUI, you're not old enough to drink.
Right, but I happened to blow almost
Stupid.
a .4, so
What?
yeah,
Dude.
but I still didn't think I had a problem.
Of course not.
No.
Right,
Yeah.
so
It's whoever's car you were driving's fault.
that they let me drive it,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like leading up to it, I ended up calling or texting my uncle.
Okay.
And I knew that he had some experience with this.
Oh,
and he had asked me, have you ever thought about rehab? And of course, I'm like, hell no.
I've thought a lot about rehab, about not going there.
Right, exactly. I thought it was just something in these TV shows and movies,
Right.
like
Real
introducing
people
yourself
don't.
as an
Yeah.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so I ended up calling AAC.
Well, real quick, were you afraid to come out and be like, hey, I'm an alcoholic or I'm an addict or...
Honestly, I wasn't coming to get sober. I was afraid of being homeless.
Okay.
I didn't have anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
I was drinking and drugging myself into oblivion.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, it's a roof over my head. It's a hot meal in front of me.
Yeah.
I see palm trees and pools and this and that. It's a vacation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Little did you know.
Right. Little did I know.
It's a lot of work.
It is. And especially, hopping on a plane and going
miles
halfway
away.
across the country,
Yeah.
to admit that I had a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that takes balls for anybody, but someone that's so young like you, which, by the way, I said this all the time while we were in there. She was the youngest one in there, the smartest one with the best head on her shoulders out of any of us there. She had her shit together. So,
yeah, I mean, I was really good at acting like I had my shit together. Let's be real.
Yeah. So, okay, so you leave your family behind, miles away. You get on a plane, you fly out to a place where, like you said, you're going to be saying, look, I'm an alcoholic, or I have a problem. There's something wrong with me. Help, and you get there. And what was it like your first 2 days? Walk me through detox.
Oh goodness. I was a complete mess.
No.
I mean,
No way.
I probably weighed in at less than 100 pounds.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
And
Now she weighs 97 pounds. So
thank you. But to put that into perspective, I'm 5'6".
Yeah.
So that being said,
I'm a gymnast.
Right, correct. And so that being said, I weigh nothing.
Yeah.
I have a hard time eating, keeping anything down because of all the drugs I was ingesting.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I was throwing up, shakes.
Yeah.
I mean, just terrible nightmares. I had really bad nightmares too.
Right. I experienced some of that too. What kind of medication did they put you on?
What's that one called where they
Robaxin?
It's like
Ativan?
a generic form of Xanax.
Ativan.
Yeah, Ativan.
Yeah.
So they put me on Ativan, and then I got really pissed because they took me off of Ativan for like only 3 days in, and
It's
I'm
a
like,
party
I am
fruit.
worse than this.
I'm worse than this. Give me more.
Right, yeah. Like no normal human would say,
right,
but
right. You're in a place trying to get sober, and still your brain is working like, I need more drugs.
right. Like
Yeah.
I didn't.
Trying to
Okay,
milk
another thing too with my self-esteem levels.
Yeah.
My self-esteem levels. I was very suicidal before I came in here.
Oh wow.
So I actually did attempt, and then
What? Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this one last time. This is our normal podcast. We don't skim over shit. We get into shit.
Yep.
Dig deep. Let me hear.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
Walk me through your suicidal attempt. What happened there?
So I ended up writing letters
Okay.
to all of my loved ones.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking a handful of pills, and
What made you choose that way?
because the complete honest truth, I'm too much of a pussy to do it any other way.
I would have been.
You
too.
know? And
Yeah.
so I ended up taking a shit ton of pills and drank a whole bottle of Jack Daniels.
Okay,
And
this sounds more like a party than a suicide attempt.
but
Just
when you're in your
God.
bathtub alone, you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
it was just really dark.
What thoughts were going through it? Because that's got to be, I mean, to get to a point where actually attempting, that's got to be the darkest, scariest point. And what thoughts were going through your head when you're like, I'd rather just end it than go through any more of these thoughts?
Because I thought there was no other way out. I was
Mm-hmm.
so deep down where I had cut off my parents.
Right.
You know, I used to think that they cut me off. I cut them
Yeah.
off. I pushed
Yeah.
them away. I had completely ruined my relationship with all of my friends
Right.
that I had. I had nobody, you
Right.
know, and they might have still been there for me, but I thought I was alone. I felt so alone and out of place.
Was a little bit that you knew that maybe those people would be there, but you would have to stop using the substances or drinking, and you didn't want to do that? Was that any of it?
Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
didn't want to change my lifestyle. You know, I was this party girl. I liked
Yeah.
going out and dressing up, and then
Yeah.
it spiraled out of control.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's always fun until it's not fun anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean-
absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so you do this attempt. What happens? You're alone in this bathtub, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
You take all these pills, you drink this whole bottle. Were you expecting just to not wake up again?
I was
then-
expecting not to wake up, and when I woke up, I was pissed.
Yeah,
I
I've
was
heard that.
pissed because, and then it got worse. You know,
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts got worse, and having those thoughts of, just disgustingness. Like, I don't even have a word for it. It's
Right.
Sure.
there's no words for that feeling.
Maybe less than human feeling. even.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And to feel so alone and isolated, that is one of the worst possible feelings.
Yeah.
Where you're left alone with your thoughts. You know, your head's a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go there
Right,
alone.
right.
Like, and when you do, it's bad.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that breaks my heart hearing this about you, because you're such an outgoing person. You're so fun to be around, and sober and fun to be around. I bet you never thought you could do that. have fun in sobriety. And how did you bring yourself out of this dark place? What were your steps? Was it coming to rehab that did that?
It was removing myself from those people, places, and things.
Mm-hmm.
I removed myself, and I don't necessarily think about it as running from my problems because I get to make living amends today.
Yeah.
But I do believe that coming out here to a completely different environment, opening my eyes and opening my ears and really listening to what these people had to say.
Yeah.
And the people around me. Like, the people around me really made me realize that, this is serious.
Absolutely.
And I do have a problem, and I will have a problem.
Right. I mean, it's life-threatening. It's that's serious. It's life or death. So you came out here, you changed your people, place, and things. You were going through detox. You come off the Ativan, and now, what was your first couple weeks of like treatment and experiencing going through therapy, and what was all that like?
Okay, well, the first few weeks, it's kind of like those last few months or last years of, someone's addiction. Like,
right.
I call it a blur. It's like a blur to me.
Yeah.
But I do remember the BHTs coming in and like having to drag me out of bed. Like, I would pull the covers over my head and like curl up in a little ball and cry.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even want to come out of my room.
Right.
And to see other people living their best life, I'm like, okay, you have years.
Right.
How am I ever going to relate to you?
Right. Right.
So I'm sitting there miserable, and it's my mindset. I'm still in that miserable place where I just don't even want to look at anybody.
Right.
And let alone, get up and shower and brush my teeth.
Right. You removed all the substances, but your mental state of mind was still right there.
Yeah,
correct.
I've seen that a lot. I've even done it myself. Yeah, remove the substances, thinking that once I take this out, okay, then I'll be fine, be able to function. Right. But like you're saying,
it's a good start, but that's not.
You got to retrain. Everything has to change.
Everything.
So okay, you're going through. How often did you see a therapist when you were in treatment?
Oh goodness, a lot.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah. Way too many times, but not enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like, I was in the therapist's office for different reasons too. Yeah. Like, they were worried about me, or because, when I came in after I got off the flight, I went into that room and just let everything go.
Yeah.
Like, I was able to finally be honest with someone about what drugs I had been doing, how I had been doing them, and where I was at mentally,
I experienced that too, that thing of like, because even the people that I did finally admit to, like, that, hey, I'm using this or that, like the closest, even at the time,
sugarcoating it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And then you finally, when you first get to treatment, they take you into a room one-on-one with somebody else who's a recovered addict usually, and they go through, hey, tell me what exactly you've been doing so we can treat it. And it's like the first time you get to be like, I was taking 20 Vicodin in the morning and 29th, and
10 minutes later, you're done.
And then you're like, I also did some meth and a lot of cocaine. And you finally get to get all that out to somebody, and then they start treating you for it. All of a sudden you feel like this weight off you. At least I did. I was like, this weight's off me. Someone knows the real. And then the way they reacted when I told them was like, I get it. Like, how you understand, And that's the thing with, like, why I talk about the stigma all the time, because we're so afraid to tell people how the depth of what's going on with us, and we die when we don't tell somebody. We die. That's the bottom line. And this stigma is killing people. And so you finally got to tell somebody, exactly what you're doing. What did that feel like afterwards?
It felt weird at first because I've never been that open and honest with somebody. Like, my parents always confronted me about, hey, what are you doing? We know you're doing more than just drinking. Like, we don't understand. And I couldn't. I couldn't bring myself to be so honest. Transparent.
Yes.
So
except
that
your
weight,
skin's transparent. Little ginger over there. She's got gingivitis.
Wow.
That was hacky. I apologize. So you didn't want to tell your parents. You finally get to tell these people. Now you're in treatment. You go through some of the therapy. You're starting to come back to you're human again, And what was it like when everything started clicking for you, and how long into treatment did it take before all of a sudden you're able to absorb some of the courses that you're taking in there, some of the classes and the therapy, you're absorbing it and becoming the person that you are now?
Honestly, I think it was when I hit about 60 days,
Yeah.
I think, because those first 30 days, you know, I was messing around.
Right.
I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, I did because it was my only other option, but you know, I was messing around, and then finally, like I said, I had that moment where I opened my ears. That was a big, you know, people always say take the cotton out of your mouth or out of your ears and put it in your mouth and listen, you know. So I really started to listen and absorb those those key facts that are going to save my life.
Yeah. Now, what was the challenges being a female, being in treatment, where there's honestly, you know, boys just don't. I feel like you girls can't walk around in there without some guy, including myself at times, hitting on the girls, and like I'm sure I saw you had it constantly because you're a beautiful girl, and you have it constantly. These guys hitting on you, and that you're trying to get sober, and you're vulnerable coming in. We're all vulnerable coming into treatment, but I feel like the females are a little more vulnerable to some of that stuff. And how did you fight it off? Because you did a great job fighting off the men and still being yourself and getting sober. But what are the challenges in treatment dealing with that? Is it challenging?
Yeah, it's challenging. I mean, and everyone else around me saw it, and now I see it. Yeah. But at the time, you know, I was so emotionally broken that, you know, all of this attention was feeding that emotional void.
Absolutely.
So once I separated myself from that, I finally realized, like, hey, I'm here for me.
Yes.
Not for you, not to save you.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, you know, like my mindset was I was just messing around, you know. That was the vibe in treatment around us, you know, when we were all just sitting around bullshitting. That was the vibe, you know. It was the, okay, well, you're a rehab 10, so let me go for you. You know, it's not like
you're
that.
You're a regular 10. Don't sell yourself
a rehab 10.
A rehab 10.
Like, there's different standards, you know? You're just coming off drugs. You finally see things for the first time, and it's like, wow, okay.
I used to joke around with Danny, the lovely Danny that everybody loves.
Hi, Danny.
I used to joke around, and I'd say to Danny, like, dude, we're two good-looking cats in here, bro. And I'd say, dude, we were sitting in the room totally joking. By the way, I'm not this egomaniac. I mean, I am an egomaniac, but not this bad. And I said to him, I was like, dude, how lucky are these girls in here, dude? We're treats, bro. We're treats. You know? So we had this joke because this girl showed up to a meeting one time. I think you remember her. She was on heroin when she showed up to the meeting. You guys were all sitting in the row. I was so proud to show her off. She shows up to this meeting, this girl, and she's loaded on heroin, and I'm like, oh no. And everybody, you guys all started blowing up my phone with, oh, you're a treat, all right. Treatment. You know? And this girl literally, she shows up loaded, then she goes to the bathroom, does another shot. She's in there for maybe 20 minutes, if you remember. And then she comes off, she's nodding out in her seat, and every time she wakes up, she starts handing candy out to everyone around her.
I heard this story.
And then all of a sudden, Jessica leans over, one of the other girls in treatment. She taps me, kind of urgent, but also kind of hysterical. And she's like, she just fell asleep with water in her mouth. She's going to drown.
Gonna drown.
And I was like, oh God. So then I was totally embarrassed. But I mean, that's some of the stuff that you see, some of the goofing around. But then there's some people like I myself, and I feel like you did too, and particularly is we put this change on, you know what, this goofing around stuff isn't going to hack it. I did it mostly right after that relapse I had, and I realized how deadly this disease was. And so I made this change myself of like, I'm going to get serious with this. I'm going to, you know, Dave Marlin talked about holding a clipboard and going to, you know, groups and really taking notes and doing all that. I started doing all that. And I noticed you did the same thing. And it's like when you make that change, the people around you start to change as well, start to get focused. You helped me do the same. And how, you know, what are the challenges of deciding, you know, I'm going to be this rehab nerd. I'm going to do all this, you know?
Well, I mean, I can't say that I was really a rehab nerd until I heard Dr. Bradley speak.
Dr. Joseph Bradley.
Yes.
If you guys haven't gone on Amazon and got his book, do it. He will change your entire life.
I mean, he was just, I couldn't take my eyes off. No. I was so zoned in with him that I'm like, I'm excited to learn about this stuff. And you know, too, making that change of like, I was kind of in the middle area. I was in the gray area for a little while. I was like, okay, some days I'm into it. Some days I'm saying, screw this, I'm out.
Right.
You know, so that shift happened once I moved into the Davis house, lovely Marcy Davis accepted me into her home.
And that's your sober living?
Yes, she owns, right? She owns those homes. Yeah. And I moved in there about January 25th, and the change happened within a few weeks of that, you know. Yeah. I stopped sponsoring myself.
Yeah.
you know, and thought I was a great sponsor for myself. Yeah. I was like, I can read.
Give yourself the best advice.
Yeah, right. Right. So you got a sponsor. I've said for me it was important getting either a sponsor or a mentor, somebody who's been through similar things than me, but can also guide me through the way to get sober and live a life where I can be a contributing member of society. And it's really helped me. And the second part of it for me is going to therapy outside of it, because I felt like there were some things that I've done or gone through that I need medical treatment, you know, somebody who's trained medically in treating, you know, addiction or doing therapy. So I get therapy as well professionally. Do you do outside therapy as well as your mentorship or your sponsorship?
I don't do outside therapy, but I'm in service. I volunteer, you know, once a month I feed the homeless at the mission.
No
and
way.
Then, yeah. And
that's awesome.
I speak. I bring I'm blessed to be able to bring a panel into detox at one of the facilities and, you know, show these people that it really does work, you know?
You know, you talking about feeding the homeless makes me think of somebody that I do want to plug on here really quick. Trey Noran, Noran. If you guys want to look him up, Google him. He does work out here in Las Vegas for the homeless and for people getting out of jail. He does beautiful work. Look up his nonprofit, and it's a good way to contribute working through his program. So Trey, Trey, Noran, Noran.
Cool.
But anyways, so what is that like? Walk me through a day of feeding the homeless. What do you do there?
So we get there.
Sounds pretty self-explanatory.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but I've never actually done
it.
So
there's a lot more to it. Yeah. I believe, you know, we show up. And that's another thing. We show up.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see this unity. And, like, you show up and you're all in, you know, your matching shirts. And then to be able to produce, I think we did almost 700 meals one night.
I love it.
Oh, my God.
I mean, to see the ones that are truly grateful, you know, and it's so humbling to think. And, you know, I always used to say, I'm not as bad as everyone else in the program. But they're always yet. Like, you haven't done this yet.
Right. Exactly.
So to look at that and to see that this is actually a problem, you know, it's very humbling. And the fact that I get to help people today is absolutely beautiful.
Isn't
that's
it
really
the best
cool
feeling? Yeah. You know, the yet thing that you're talking about, I want to touch on that, because how often did I say when I was in treatment, they'd ask my DOC, right? Drug, by the way, singular hoodie of choice. And I would say opiates, but I've never done heroin. That's what I used to say. Opiates, but I never did heroin, just opiates. And then 82 days after I was getting sober, and what did I do? I went out, I smoked heroin. So they're yets. They don't have to be
Look
yets.
at your need to clarify, by the way.
What?
But I know you had to just let everyone know, but I never did heroin.
Oh, yeah.
It's
honestly, like that's how much better I am. I didn't do it right. That was my thinking. That's my and
I never used IV drugs. Yeah. I never smoked it, but I snorted it.
Right.
You know, it's
when the reality of the situation is the substance doesn't matter at all. You can be using any substance. It has nothing to do with it. This is
just
the disease.
That your addiction progresses and gets worse.
Yeah, well,
as time goes on.
Well, and the disease itself isn't addiction. The disease is impulse control. A symptom of it is addiction. So, you know, it can be taken out through other different ways, but when we do it through substances, it's more impactful and noticeable, and we tend to make disasters of things.
Yeah.
And the substances, like you said, Hoodie, they progress if you do start taking it out through substances.
Well, yeah, and the longer you let your symptoms go untreated, the worse they're going to get.
Like with any disease,
exactly.
You know, symptoms untreated get worse, and so and the problem is when we need the help, we can't admit that we have this problem to go. So our symptoms, we wait until they're so bad we can't manage our lives. Exactly. And you know, I mean, at least that's everybody in this room right now. From what I've heard, we all experienced that.
Absolutely.
And you know, I believe everybody that's come on the podcast has. You know, what's what's something that you want to, I know that we have to get sober for ourselves, obviously, but there's things that you can gain from being sober. And what's some things that you've either gained from being sober or you hope to gain from your sobriety?
A lot. Well, one of my
on.
goals is to go back to school.
Awesome.
I want to go back to school, and I have a couple different options right now.
Okay.
I've gained weight.
Yes, you look lovely.
Thank you. And I'm
woman.
okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, like I look in the mirror. I can look in the mirror today. That's another blessing, and not cry.
Yeah.
I've gained, power.
Right.
Like, I can look people in the eyes. I can speak clearly. I can make complete sentences and be employable. Like, I have a job that I have been working there for about 3.5 months now. Yeah. Never did I think I could hold a job.
No, and you couldn't have
in
the state that you were in.
Exactly, yeah.
We call those hire and fires.
Job hoppers. Yeah, you know, it's funny because the things that you're saying, like the rest of society, that's just normal stuff that I hate that I just said normal. That's stuff that they do regularly. But our normal is to not be able to handle a job or to wake up sick every day. And so when we are to not have a home or bed to sleep in. And so when we get sober and we start gaining these things back, that is one beautiful thing that we get out of sobriety that people that have never had this disease can't have is they
take for granted.
Yeah, the gratefulness, because no matter how much they have these same things, they can't enjoy it the way we can. They don't get to. They just don't get to enjoy it.
I'm sure they appreciate it, just not in the same way.
Right. I'm sure people are grateful for their jobs and homes and stuff, but they don't get to experience the gratefulness we have for just sleeping on a bed tonight. Or, you know what I mean? And, I'm grateful for that. That's one thing that I've gained out of going through some of the traumas I have. What's something that you've gained from going to treatment, particularly, like from going through treatment, making that decision to go? What's the biggest thing that you've gotten out of it?
Well, I gained a lot now that I look back on it. Yeah. No matter what, that is the one thing that they drilled into my head was you don't pick up and you don't drink no matter what. I mean, I've been through multiple deaths. I've been through... since even being in there, we lost a friend that hung himself. Yes, and that was particularly hard for me. It hit home, and it was very, very... I still struggle with it today because I went through the same thing, just not in that way. Yeah. So...
I had come back, if you remember, I had my birthday weekend. I had taken off for the 3 days. I come back, I just got back onto campus at Resolutions, and I go walking up to you, and you're crying, and you tell me that person had just taken their life. And I said, no, they haven't. And you said, yes. And you were just broken over it. And I remember it wouldn't hit me right away. I don't know if you experienced the same thing, but it wouldn't click in my head for a minute. And I went and I tried to sit in the meeting for a second, and all of a sudden I was like, no. And I go to Nicole, the BHA, said, hey, will you talk to me outside really quick? And she's like, yeah. And I asked her, I said, this isn't real, right? This isn't real. And she goes, sweetie, I can't answer that question because of, HIPAA, you know. And I said, I need to know. And she said, I can't answer it, but you already know the answer to that. And I broke, dude. I broke so hard. And I saw the same thing from you, is just broken. Well, how did you deal with losing somebody so close to all of us, somebody that was so beautiful, somebody that just, as a sober person, how did you deal with that and get past that and stay sober yourself?
It was, and that's one of those moments where I leaned on my friends. Yeah. You know, my friends who truly know what it's like. Right. You know, my people. Right. I call you guys, my people.
Because we are.
Yeah, and leaning, I remember you hugged me that night, and I just broke. But if I didn't have that, if I felt alone in that moment, that's what would have taken me back out in my head. So having that support within the fellowship is extremely so supportive and just amazing. You know,
you can't really put a price on. I know value on the support from the fellowship, from 12-step programs, from all the different ways of getting sober. That fellowship, you just can't get it anywhere else. It's such a tight-knit tight-knit thing where like we know that we've all kind of been through similar things, and we understand each other. And so yeah, for me too, like having everybody around is what got me through that as well.
Yeah, and also the care that the employees did for us. You know, I was pulled into a room and they sat me down and they talked to me. They said, do you feel like drinking?
Right.
How do you feel? What do you feel? And at the time I was like, I don't know what I feel, you know? And that's one thing I've gained is feelings. I can recognize, and I call them the F word because they're terrible.
Right.
But it's like I've gained the ability to deal with feelings and emotions that are temporary.
Yeah. How do you talk about that? You sometimes, right? The feelings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, good and bad. I mean, okay, so here's how I look at it. If you only ever experienced happy feelings and, you know, top of the rainbow, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it wouldn't be that.
Correct.
Because you'd have nothing to compare it to. So if you're not feeling the the negativity, the sadness, you're going to get hurt. That's life. But you need to, well, I don't want to say you need to, but I think you should be able to appreciate that because it's part of life, and life isn't life without it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely,
man. But leaning on each other and all that through people passing, you know, because that shit's tough. It's like what we went through at Hope.
Absolutely.
With more than one person. It's never easy, but when you have people there that care about you, that you can talk to and relate to about it, it's major. And, you're lucky to have had that.
That's what got me through it too at Hope. It's you, man. I mean, really, we had to just lean on each other.
Vice versa,
Yeah. Well, Brittany, what is something, some sort of advice you'd give to somebody thinking about going into treatment, but that just can't pull the trigger on it? A bad choice of words. Thinking about going into treatment. Jesus. Oh, sorry, guys. Thinking about going into treatment, but that just is
scared to.
Yeah, scared to. That's better. Yeah.
If that thought is even in your head, it's a good idea. Yeah, and you won't want to. Nobody wakes up and says, "Oh, I'm gonna go to rehab today. Let's go, guys. Let's have a good time." You know, no. Nobody wakes up and says, "Let's go to rehab." But you know, I know somebody else had said this before, but it's like you want to fix your relationships or you want to change your life, so do it. There is absolutely nothing stopping you. And this doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're old, young, what your orientation is, your color of your skin, background, and your story. It doesn't matter. This doesn't discriminate.
No, this
so
disease
don't be scared because everybody, I had a lady tell me, well, if I don't know, if I haven't done it, I know somebody who has done it.
Right.
Or if they don't know, I know somebody who knows somebody that's done it, you know? Right. So you're not alone.
No.
And that is the biggest key. You are not alone.
No, you're not.
And if you're in denial, you're also not immune to this thing.
No.
Because it'll take anyone out.
It doesn't care if you believe in it or not.
Yep.
Yeah. Brittany, you've been awesome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah. I'm glad I got to see you when I came out here.
Me
We've
too.
been talking about it for a while. Finally got to come see you.
Right?
This is great. Thank you for coming on the show. And I want to thank, as always, real quick, do you have any burning desires? Anything you want to say, or are we good?
We're good. I mean, I think I'm brutally honest.
Yeah, you were great. Joel Cowan, our audio engineer. I love you, Joel.
Love you too, Saul. Thank you.
You're the best. And Brian Hoodie, my co-host.
That's me.
Do not call him.
Don't do it.
And as always, we are going to get played off by our new favorite outro. It's just, I love this song for some reason. It just matches up perfect.
A good one.
My brother-in-law had that great outro that we were using for a long time, so I'm hesitant to switch it because I love my brother-in-law's outro, but this one's great too. So we're going to go back and forth. Agent Papa, play us out. Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, little Sammy, what you got in that sack? Looking tough, like you ain't coming back. Hey, little Sammy, when are you going to fly? Times are rough, people get tough.